Hey everybody out there in Guitar Land, you ready for a new Hot Licks lesson package? Oh, I really hate that. I hate it when people do that. Chris Cooper here with another shameful attempt at a guitar lesson video. To talk about two things today. First of which is octaves and how to use them to your advantage on the fretboard. Second is phrasing and how gosh darn important that is to everything we do, no matter what style you think you're in or what kind of player you think you are. So octaves, let's just do it quick and dirty. Here's A at the 5th fret of the low E string. The octave of that note is found 2 frets up and 1 string over at the 7th fret of the D string. Another octave of that note, A, is found a few more frets up, 3 frets up and 1 string over at the 10th fret of the B string. A, A, A. If that is true, then if we approach that A from a whole step below, say 3, 5, then that pattern will repeat at 5, 7 of the D string and at 8, 10 of the B string. If that's true, then if we add more notes, say 3, 5, 3, 5 on the next string, then that will repeat exactly the same way in our next two string groups. If we add more notes, 3, 5, 3, 5, 7, that works too. Each time all we're doing is finding where that A is and repeating the shape we played with our left hand in groups of 2 strings at a time. The E and the A string, the D and the G string, and the B and the E string. If we add one more note and maybe something tapped on another string, say G, A, B, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7 on the A string and tapped at the 10th fret, we would get G, A, B, C, D, E, G. We could do that again. 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9, tapped 12 on the G string, and 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, tapped 15 on the high E. We could even move up to a tap note at the 17th fret of the high E, A, and descend with what equates to an A minor 7 arpeggio. What if we put all that together? Let's hear how all that sounds against a backing track. So here's the octaves again. Here's approaching A from G. Here's approaching the A from G, but adding 2 more notes. G, A, C, D, G, A, C, D, G, A, C, D. Let's add one more note. That works. Let's add that B. Let's add that tap note. Oh, I kind of like that. Let's do it again. Works for me. Alright, and part 2 of today's lesson type thing, the phrasing part of things. I have no idea how to teach phrasing. I don't really know how to talk about it. But I imagine most of you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say phrasing, and that is just how do you play the notes? You know, do you play them hard? Do you play them soft? Do you slide into the first note? Do you pull off into the first note? that all of that combines into your phrasing. And how you phrase is pretty indigenous to who you are. We recognize people's phrasing. We don't really recognize a group of notes. It's not like, well, there's Carlos Santana's notes, and there's Eric Johnson's notes, and there's Pat Martino's notes. But we recognize how they play those notes because we're all playing the same notes. So what really differentiates you from me, from him, from her, from them, is how each of us play those notes. And so here's my tone. All right, one nice thing about this kind of overdrive is that if I pick softly, it's clean. If I pick hard, it's dirtier. All right, and that kind of ties into what we're talking about here. If you're playing with a sound that is just kind of balls out, all out distortion, that's going to be cool. If it doesn't respond to your picking dynamics, you're kind of missing out on half the fun. So whether you're playing through a little Line 6 Spider amp or a really fancy rig with a bunch of boutique pedals, make sure that how you've got things set maybe isn't on stun the whole time, because there's a lot of room to wiggle between, you know, full out stun rah, and something not quite so dramatic, shall we say. All right, so here are some phrasing ideas. Let's take this A minor pentatonic, and I'm just going to play some things that kind of come naturally to me, but I'm going to try and stop and think about what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and maybe give you some insight into stuff you could try. All right, so right there we have a double stop at the 5th fret of the D and G strings. All right, so we're approaching that A, our key center, from a whole step below, but we're also kind of hitting a double stop or a two-note group with that G and C and hammering. Then we're kind of slurring a little bit. We're just raking the pick down across a few strings and hitting this slide from the 7th fret of the A string to the 5th fret, and then resolving from the minor third C to A. All right, to my ears, that kind of sounds like you mean it, as opposed to now there's nothing wrong with that second one, right? Hit all the notes, it was clear. I didn't really feel a whole lot out of it. So a little bit of that, shall we say, slop contributes to this authenticity in your phrasing. No, I'm not saying that playing with bad technique means you're playing with more feeling. But I do think that a little bit of slurring here and there, some sliding, looking at how hard or how soft you're picking right in the middle of a phrase can make a huge difference to the person listening to you. All right? So again, here's another little pentatonic lick. Here it is with a little bit of grease on the wheels. Hopefully this wasn't too rambly and you get what I'm talking about. As you're practicing, as you're playing with buddies, as you're on the gig in the middle of a solo, don't mess up, but allow yourself to get into a headspace where you can go, you know what, how am I saying what I want to say right here? Sometimes it's as easy as kind of playing a game with yourself of call and response. You can compose a solo on the spot that sounds like it makes some kind of sense by phrasing and how you link your phrasing together. So I'm going to try it just kind of off the top of my head with this backing track. Let's take a step back, and here we go. So call and response phrasing.